This is Women in Linux. Welcome to the Women in Linux podcast, exposing women to information and careers in technology.
Thanks for joining Women in Linux with your hosts Tamika Reed and Dee Parler. Today we have with us is Jerome Hardaway, Executive Director of Vets Who Code.
Hey Jerome,
Hi.
how are you doing?
Hey, Tamika, how you doing?
I'm
How
awesome.
you doing, Dee?
I'm awesome as well.
I want to give a little bit more on your intro there. I want to call you the extraordinaire Ruby developer as well. and also just an overall genuine a good person as well. So
Thank you. I don't think I'm the extraordinaire, but
you have to take these kudos here. You have to take these kudos. And two, I wanted to also commend you on Vets Who Code as well too. I looked at some of your your website, some of the things that you're doing, and just overall happy belated Veterans Day, and also thank you for serving as well too. Wanted to make sure I got that in there for you, just as overall, and anybody else who's listening or who listens to the podcast, make sure that we give a shout out to veterans, those that are in as well, that have served in during wartime. I can honestly say thank you, being a former Navy wife, so I will always give the shout out to that. I understand how hard it is on both sides of the rim, far as you being deployed and far as you having a family. So I wanted to make sure I give that shout out.
Thank you. I guess I'm the lucky ones that I didn't get married after the military, so my wife didn't have to deal with it. But she's a Army brat, so she still knows what she went through it just as a kid, not as a spouse. So.
Mm-hmm. But give us an introduction about who you are, what you represent, and a little bit about how you got started with Vets Who Code, and just a little bit overall how you got started in being a Ruby developer as well.
Roger that. My name's Jerome Hardaway. I'm, as I said before, Executive Director of Vets Who Code. I was originally Security Forces in Phoenix Raven program in the United States Air Force, and transitioned out of the military into a full stack web developer, or as those of us who don't use a marketing term, just web developer, and founder and executive director of Vets Who Code. I created Vets Who Code out of a need of seeing that there weren't a lot of opportunities for veterans that didn't have administrative or corporate style jobs in the military on the outside, and me being one of them who, when I was exiting the military, everything was pretty much being sequestered or shut down due to a recession, and the only jobs that recruiters assumed I was qualified for were jobs that weren't hiring, such as police officer or security guard, because of our in-depth security program background and security forces. And the jobs that were definitely hiring me were all private military companies that I did not want to work for the foreseeable future. So I decided that I was going to learn a skill that would be able to get me jobs. And coding was a skill I settled on because of how much time I had on my hands and how little was required of me in regards of like physical resources to learn it. All you needed was a computer and Wi-Fi. So that's what I turned around, and it changed my life. So I decided to create a nonprofit to help other veterans and be able to teach them how to program, so I can help as many veterans as I can change their lives as well.
Thank you for that, because that was one of the things I always saw coming out of, just looking at everyone transitioning out of the military. I don't think there's a good platform or a good foundation on making that happen. I think, you go through and, you say, hey, you can collect your unemployment, you can get your disability, this, that, and the other, but having the skills, translate of what you learned in the military to what is in the job market now is not always like it's not a direct path to that. And oftentimes it's also not the skill sets that you need, you don't end up having sometimes. So you end up having either A, go back to school to get those, and then two, you're not sure about what you actually need, what's out there in the private sector in order for you to make that transition. So oftentimes it's that gets looked over. So I applaud you for making that transition and recognizing that need and something that you wanted to do. There could have been other things you could have went into. It could have been security. Did those not appeal to you, or that was just something that was just not even on your radar?
As in cybersecurity or things of that nature?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not that those didn't appeal to me. It's just, and then when you're transitioning, speed is the name of the game. The first 2 years of the military are the hardest. So I was looking at programming in general because it was the fastest way to get into a company. There are a lot of different routes that you can go, but as many people with computer science degrees or electrical engineering degrees will even tell you, the most famous people who don't, they started out as programmers. Robert J. Para, who owns the Grizzlies, he has an electrical engineering degree, and he started out as a programmer for Apple. And his story of going from programmer to using his electrical engineering degree to build a component that would help have smoother and more powerful Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connection, and being rejected and taking $10,000 of his own money to build a product that now the company that rejected it has to pay him to make it. It's like a Cinderella story of sorts. But it all started out with starting out as a web developer, as a coder. So that's it's a really great, really fast skill that if you dedicate yourself to, it get your foot in the door, a lot of things. Right now, I'm looking more into data science, trying to incorporate data science into Rails, especially big data, and in correlation of like how crazy the world is and how data has become the new currency. But that I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have a background in programming that was able to fall back on and to understand the more complex things. Saturday, I spent my time at a hookah bar somewhere in the middle of nowhere in my hometown, talking about predictive modeling with two college kids, and just being able to fall back on what I had learned from Ruby on Rails and other coding languages and the things I learned in regards to data science. Be able to talk to these kids that actually work in big data, that would not have been possible if I had not had at least some type of technical background. And my fallback has always been software programming.
And then, so your path is like, hey, I went to the military, I got out, I became a full stack developer or web developer, and then I code. And then one day you said, okay, I'm going to make vets who code. I mean, the question is like, how do you go from, I want to be, I'm going to go learn development to, I'm going to go start a nonprofit? And not necessarily a nonprofit for vets, but like, what was the mental transition there? Like, because now you're thinking from going from being employed or being a consultant to being a nonprofit and then employing others.
I had always, my wife and several people I've encountered on my journey, they call it service leadership. And I have always, I guess, been a servant leader, even though I cringe at the term of thinking that that's always been something that I've been into since as a child, from what my mom is saying. So the shift from helping or being in a nonprofit to being in the military was relatively small, because I was always, to me, it's just an extension of my service. It was more of a shift of who I was serving. I've gone, from serving the ideals of what makes American society to serving veterans and creating a hard, critical skill for them to be able to pick up, obtain, and get the type of lifestyle that they've earned. So that's where that concept has come into play. But for the most part, the shift on business side, I think that's been the biggest shift, especially when you're looking at organizations and different types of development. that you may not be a fan of. I think that was like, for me, the biggest thing is trying to build an organization that has everything I love and none of the stuff I hate is the hardest part of the job. Because one of my first jobs getting out of the military was at a nonprofit that helped veterans. I absolutely, as their web developer and helping them with all the digital marketing, things of that nature, I saw a lot of the wrong things that were into play when it comes to the nonprofit space, particularly how, because of the grant system when it comes to government grants in the VSO or Veteran Services Organization space, there seems to be a monopoly. So as a result, with the VA or Department of Veteran Affairs states that they're not going to do something, even though it may not, it's the right thing to do because everybody wants that money. A lot of the other nonprofits, they tend to back away from the situation, which is ironically how we started. There was a young man in my hometown who ended up getting gunned down by the police, and his mother went to the Department of Veteran Affairs to try to see if they would at least help her with the cost of burial. Like, they'll give you the rights to be buried in military burial establishments, but they don't give you, they don't pay for that. A lot of people are under the presumption that if you are a veteran, your funeral is paid for it, and that's only if you die in service. But the VA determined that even though they were the ones who cost the bolo out and things of that nature, they weren't at fault. So they were not going to help their mother bury her son. The most they were going to do was give her I believe it was $250 retroactively after she finished burying her son. And and it was a really big deal. But because the VA said what they said, a lot of the other VSOs basically threw their hands up and said they weren't going to be involved either, because like they say, love the money is the root of all evil. So. Right. Not to upset Big Brother with deep pockets, no one else stepped up to the plate. Well, here I am, being the young 26-year-old numbskull I was back then. I decided, no, not 26, 28, sorry, 28-year-old numbskull. I decided that I was going to step forward and I was going to help this family. So I used my software engineering skills, the skills I picked up with media, and I created this huge social campaign that raised about $10,000 for this family in about a little over 27 hours. And they were able to bury him and start a education fund for his daughter, who turned 1 a week after his death. So that is how we were born. And we decided to use this skill of software engineering because I had just used it to do something amazing with someone. And that's one of the things that people don't understand is how we shifted from doing that to helping to focusing on code. It's because we just saw the power of the web and just how much people's lives were involved in code. So if we could teach this as a skill, get veterans the idea, teach them how to think like programmers, give them an idea of what programming was, they could go, with the already having the level of discipline that veterans have, already having the level of willing to put in the hard work that veterans have, giving this as a skill was going to make veterans with all our soft skills, it's for the moon. I'm walking proof of that. Some of our troops like to say I'm not just the executive director, but I'm also a client.
Right.
Yeah, like the Hair from Men thing. I hope they don't hear that one day and decide to sue me.
I hear that. And then you started, and you kind of touched on it a little bit when you were talking, but talking about putting your team together and then branding that, making sure everyone is on the same page. How do you go out and look for your new team members or to come on board? And what kind of soft and hard skills do you look for, or do you just look for the person, their heart, what they have in their heart? Does it line up with what you have? What are you actually looking for?
Roger that. That's a positive and negative thing. That's one of the hardest things I've had to learn is like how to hire the right people, and it comes down with like there's so many things that come into play, like what area you're in, what like geographically, like where's like HQ, because in the end, as a VSO, what matters the most is which location I'm in. So I have to be in a veteran-friendly city or locale that actually understands technology, and which I am, but I'm not completely because we're 100% remote. That's how we reach our students. That's how we work as a unit. So even we do most of our work out of New York and San Francisco because those dudes freaking love us. But I'm currently in Nashville with team members in New York and one in Atlanta and one moving to San Francisco. So the way we do that is just a simple, first, I think one of the best books I could recommend on building a team is Rework. It'll change how you do work in general. It's by the creators of the creator of Rails and the creators of Basecamp. They are really, really smart guys, and they've simplified actually how to work, especially working remotely and building a successful company without all the bells and whistles. They've gotten it down to a science. So those guys I absolutely love. The other thing was that, like, I just follow a really simple rule, like, that comes from our sponsors, the people that we work with, and the people that I choose to work with. I want to work with people that I absolutely love. Like, every person on our team, I'm excited when I talk to them. There's no eye rolling when I'm like, oh, I got to deal with this asshole again. But no, that's not the case when it comes to my team. I'm not, under excited or aspirated. Or this person can do their job, but I can't spend 15 minutes with them. So I think that's what helps me the most. I like Andrew Lebowitz. He is like one of my like outside of my like wife and kid, one of my most favorite people on earth. He's freaking hilarious, and he has like an idea and a vision of things that like surpasses my own when it comes to design or how the user interacts with things. And that's something that I've really come to appreciate over time. A lot of people know the story like of our logo. We initially had this was our third logo iteration before we got to the hash flag, which, everybody loves. And I did the first two iterations. So like, it's funny, like I did it twice and everybody's like, yeah, Andrew does it once and, they're raving. So I was a little butthurt about that, but I got over it.
My idea, my vision. You should like it.
Yeah, I was a little sad about it, but I got over it. You get sometimes taking the L is better when it's the right thing to do. But to go back, like I literally said, all right, we need a new logo to go with our name because it doesn't. The first logo was about giving fragos or fragmentation orders in the military, and we used a grenade for it, which the veterans loved. But as another part of growing as a business, you had to realize that just because veterans love it, it's not about who you serve, it's about your audience. So we had to build a logo that would be something that organizations would be proud to put their logo next to. And a grenade isn't something, you'd be amazed how many civilian leadership members are skittish about working with a nonprofit that has a grenade as a logo.
Right.
And then we went to like a medal, which was still good, but it didn't like hit the mark exactly. So I went to Wits, and it was pretty funny. I was like, okay, Andrew, I need, this is our name. I want something with a hashtag, and I want it patriotic. What do you got? Like, and that's all I gave him. I gave him like a crappy mock-up on like paper, 2 days on like on napkins, literally over like fish tacos, and he literally took the logo of my idea and like in a day made our current logo, and it was just so beautiful that I was like, this is the most amazing thing ever. And we rolled it out. We rolled it out to our entire rebrand and made everything that was as you see today over the course of a week, because we were going to roll it out on Memorial Day.
Mm-hmm.
But we ended up getting a call from Gary Vaynerchuk that he was going to put us on his podcast,
Mm-hmm.
the Ask Gary V show, and have us ask a question to him and Bob Knight. So
Mm-hmm.
we had an option of if we to either go with our old branding or go with our new branding. And of course, we were like, well, if we go with our old branding, then we would have to like rebrand in like it was like a month and a half. It's like, so we rebrand a month and a half, and people would be like, what on earth happened?
Right.
So we decided to just go with the current brand, the rebrand early, rolled it out before everything went live, and it was a success. We call it we think it's the most successful rebrand ever because we didn't have to put any money in getting our name out. We didn't have to throw a party or any of that. Like Gary Vee handled all that for us. So
For your rebrand, like even though you were successful, what were your steps for that? Like, you had to plan it out. You're getting ready to go on this show, on this podcast, and you want to have
well,
basically you had an image that you want to have out there when people listen to you and looked you up. You want to have a particular image, and that was the image you wanted.
Well, what happened for that was, we just had all of our ducks in a row. We had a press release, which we're really against because press releases are spam. But we already had, before his podcast dropped, we already had 2 other articles speaking about us and showing our stuff off. So everything just worked out in a way. Like we call them AARs, which are after action reviews. It's a military term. Like after you immediately do something, we talk about it, see what worked, see what did, and a lot of things that make us unique in being the first remote nonprofit and also being one of the first, actually the first nonprofit that was focused strictly on like digital skills for veterans, is that we are able to break a lot of rules. I think a lot of like what they would call, what's one of our success moves is we don't move like a conventional company. Like we have to do all the paperwork and stuff that conventional companies do,
Mm-hmm.
but we move like a military unit, and we move like a military. We don't move like a military unit in the regards of how like officers move. We move like actually boots on ground fire team units.
Mm-hmm.
We're really agile, and
Okay.
and that's one of the things I think helps us beat people. We can move and do a lot of things on the fly because we don't try to do that, that organizational structure. We feel like a lot of the organizational structures that are around actually hinders people from moving fast.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things that happen for us that are really good, really big, they happen 2 weeks, 3 weeks notice, or sometimes 3 days notice. For instance, last year, we were invited to the White House to meet the president. We found that out on 2 days that, hey, we need you guys here at the White House on this day. Things like that. We don't, if you are focused on moving really, really slow, then those things will pass you by if you have those old type of organizational structures that
Mm-hmm.
people seem to like cling on to, those 100-year-old ways of thinking.
Right.
So we've scrapped them, and we try to move like, a company that literally is ran off of like, the cloud and MacBooks. So that, technology is our friend, Wi-Fi is our friend, smooth is fast, fast is smooth. That's one of our sayings that comes from the military that we use.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just our thought process on everything. We don't focus on a lot of the old school idea thinking, which helps us help veterans at a higher rate because we don't think like how other people, like how like academics think. We only think about how does it get a job? And we really broken down that idea of getting a job or going into a new career, how to break into it, how to use social media and online presences, your online presence to break into that, what to read, what not to read, what to buy, what not to buy. Like, for instance, we use this gentleman called, his name is Gordon Zhu. His site is called Practical JavaScript. And we
Mm-hmm.
can use his work to break between him and Node School, those are two great resources out there for people who don't know anything about JavaScript that want to learn JavaScript. And in our community, I don't know if you guys ran into this, but what I saw was that a lot of people, in order to sound professional or sound like they knew what they were doing, the first book they would recommend to a new person trying to learn how to code, particularly in JavaScript, was always Eloquent JavaScript. And if you've ever gone through Eloquent JavaScript, if you're not like already some type of skilled in programming, it's a hard book to get through. And when I spoke to plenty of students, the one thing that was going on is that by chapter 3, they were like dropping that book and trying to find something else because it would go, which is a really bad thing in many software engineering books or software engineering literature in general, is they go from a beginner friendly, like the first 3 chapters, and they jump into the deep end like really, really fast. And you're like, well, what if these people don't understand it? You need a different process. So coming from a background of people that haven't been coding since they were like 12 and haven't been looking into multiple ways to do things, this, that, or the third, I think that really helped us build like a great curriculum and build great strategies to help us help veterans get jobs. So that's like one of the things that we've always focused on. Like, we don't do anything corporate, like the business as usual way.
Right. And what we've seen is, for us doing Linux, it's number one, most people don't know what it is. And the ones that do, they did it a long time ago and they want to get back into it, or they're in tech and they code, but they're not sure where Linux is something that they actually need from I guess from looking at it from a coding perspective. So it's like, okay, so once I do this, then how can I utilize my coding skills in Linux? And it's all about, automation, understanding that for us, it's understanding the infrastructure and how to build it. So it's taking, I just described 3 different people there. It's taking those 3 people, making a common platform where someone can learn on and keep the interest as well. And it's hard to keep the interest, but we don't teach in a standard way. Well, at least I don't teach in a standard way. I teach by you come to class, we're gonna do it. You're gonna get in. I'm gonna make up some things, some homework for you to do, but I don't want you to do it by yourself. I actually want you to do it with someone. Or if you don't do it with someone and you choose to do it by yourself, then make sure you take notes. And I think for me coming up, that has been the hardest thing that I have seen just in Linux in general is there's no one way to do something. There's multiple ways to do it, but then there's also no documentation of those multiple ways to do it. Having documentation and understanding what's under the hood and how it works and why it works that way is so abstract sometimes when we're talking about Linux, but I think I've broken it down enough where people it's not as abstract. And picking up books like what you were talking about, or learning Python the hard way, or you're taking your RHCSA class or some type of Linux class. There's still some fundamentals that are missing even when you go take those classes, because you still have to understand some basics of networking and security and so forth and so on before you even really get into class. And then even scripting or writing a not even an application, but just a for loop or conditionals or something of that nature. You still kind of have to have some exposure to that as well, just so you could get the basics of Linux, like, and how it applies to the overall picture. It's just what I've seen. So I always tell people, like, when you're learning something, I don't care what it is that you're learning, make sure you learn the fundamentals of it. Like, you can learn the fundamentals of cloud, and you should be able to take your fundamentals of cloud and apply it to Amazon Cloud, Azure, uh, Google Cloud, and so forth. You should understand those that fundamentals should still be there, and it shouldn't. The only thing that should translate is the syntax is different, or the interface is different over at Google Cloud versus Amazon Cloud versus Azure, and so forth. That's my philosophy. I don't know if that's what you look at, but that's how I look at it.
You're listening to Women in Linux.
Well, when it comes to instruction, we do multiple ways. We do live teaching, pair programming, group projects, and video-based. We have some of the best partners in the business when it comes to learning how to code or leveling up as you go through your journey of programming. Being Pluralsight Pragmatic Studios here with us to help us. They give us tools that we give our veterans at pro bono, zero cost to them, and that's just how we help, as well as doing a lot of teaching and drilling, as I like to say. One of our internal motto of our Slack channel is skills pay the bills. So
I like that.
Yeah, thank you. It actually comes from like back when I was a kid, and like I had a lot of family members and stuff that were in the boxing. There was something they would say in the boxing channel: skills pay the bills. So we go from that philosophy and running that back into, the only thing that really matters. Like they can, the people, we understand the interview prep, first interview is basically that the people have to figure out if, they can stand you for 15 minutes because they're going to be with you for more time. They're going to be with their wife and kids or their husband and kids. And they have to realize that they're, do I like this person enough? Like, will this person make me want to like jump out the window? So we have to make sure that they have all that squared away. Then after that, we focus on the technical interview, which we do. One of our partners, Interview Cake, they handle, give us tools to use, and we also use HackerRank and Code Wars for both to help our veterans like focus on solving problems. One of our veterans has actually gotten a job off of HackerRank, so that's pretty cool. And we also we have this interview prep structure that focuses on like the idea of prepping for like some of the top companies, because you train for championship fights, you can get the lower level fights easier. So that's how we look at code. Is like if you train for like the top companies, the scary ones, the unicorns that everybody wants to get in, that's going to be, if you make it easy for that or somewhat manageable for the Apples, the Airbnbs, and the Twitters of the world, then, working at a local company in your hometown would be, a breeze. So that's what that's the concept that we, try to focus on. But we do a multitude of different ways to learn, because we understand not everybody learns the same way. And that's why we, that's how we came across learn JavaScript. Not learn JavaScript Hardway, which is coming out hopefully next year. Full disclosure, you mentioned Learn Python the Hard Way. I love that book. I love the whole Learn Code the Hard Way series. But he is also a board member on in our nonprofit, and he is a Army veteran. He actually, when we met, we actually had a really fun time talking about both of our times in South Korea. So that was pretty cool to, he was the first book I picked up. So
right,
like go from reading his books to having him on my board has been like a complete WTF moment in my life.
I'm sure it has.
So yeah, it's one of those things that say never meet your heroes, but like my heroes are all pretty cool, so I'm pretty cool with it.
Right.
But when it comes to learning, you always have to look for different tools, because I think especially with computer science, with computer skills, like when we go from user to super user, going from that concept of just using a computer to check Facebook to actually building things or hosting things or deploying applications. First 20 years of this, or first 30, 40 years of this was like preserved for really analytical, math engaged like minds. And then as we gotten further, outside of Algebra 2, you really don't need a lot of this stuff unless you're going to be doing really high level machine learning or computational things of that nature. but the rest of it, you don't really need all that like hard math. Like even today, the biggest problem is by the IEEE, which says what computer science like path should have in college. They're really outdated, and those students are battling the boot campers and the self-learn, and it's becoming really, really hard for the graduates because only 14 credit hours, 14 courses in college actually cover actual like computer science and coding. The rest is math. And
Right.
in 2010, we learned that English grads and journalism grads make better web developers or programmers than your college, your computer science grad, because they have more experience in putting an idea together and formulating it so that someone else can understand it. So it was really crazy that, these like people who we were thinking couldn't do it at all, or guys like me who people thought there's no way on earth you could do something like this. I tell people all the time, when I first started talking about learning how to code, my folks laughed at me. I'm a black guy from the South. How on earth are you going to make a switch from being a dude that carried an M4 and an M9 to writing programs? And now I make more than both my parents, like from coding. So it was like, a joke's on you.
Right. Right.
So that's one of those like concepts that we're always focusing on. Like I read all the time. I'm always doing AARs with our troops, Hawk checks. Well, I guess Hawk. You have to know what some of the things I'm saying. AAR is after action review. Hawk is health and wellness check. Those are the two terms that we use the most in our nonprofit that are military based, but they really our troops are comfortable with them. They've taken a different meaning in our structure because doing those Hawks, doing those AARs keeps us on our toes, and it helps raise the EQ, because as a veteran operated nonprofit, one of the weaknesses that we realized at first, we were going to have a problem with is EQ. A lot of people were going to be coming to us wanting to change in their lives. So you couldn't be an emotional robot when you're dealing with people. A non-emotional robot, I apologize. When you're dealing with people who, they're either getting out of the military, or or they've already gotten out of the military, and they've come against a brick wall that's saying, thank you for your service, but you're not good enough to work here. So they're looking for something to help them, break through that wall to start having the life they've earned. Every cohort we've had, we have at least one person have a baby or get married. It's like I'm like godfather to like 5 different kids. I'm not taking care of. I'm like if any of y'all go, I'm not taking care of any of these kids. I'm letting y'all know that right now.
That's another nonprofit.
Yeah, I was like, that is not the nonprofit I am running. So it's really crazy to what we've me being a guy just turned 30, and we've been at this for 2 years, and the lives we've changed and impacted. So, but it all comes down to how we teach and how we learn, how we identify troops and students.
Absolutely. And Dee has a question. Go ahead.
It's more like a comment, and then I definitely want Jerome to expound on it. You mentioned skills pay the bills, and we've noticed, Tamika and I, that, the marketing around code schools and learning how to code and things is like really great. It's kind of like this get rich quick scheme. And so we found early on in our curriculum is where we had to set expectations about the work that's going to be needed, soften hard skills in order to, before you even begin the journey. And that it's not going to happen in 2 days or 3 days, or maybe not even 3 months. But we want to give you the opportunity to be exposed to a plethora of things to see where you fit. What do you think about what do you guys do as far as setting expectations so people don't fall by the wayside, because they get discouraged really quickly?
Well, I think first and foremost, I tell people all the time, we are cheating 150%. We have the best we don't call them clients because it just feels wrong, but we have the best group of people that we work with. We have veterans. The more, over half of them are millennial veterans. So they come in through the door with a level of dedication and discipline, and they've already seen through other people's lives what programming can do. So we don't really have that problem of expectations to the same degree that the for-profit schools have. I actually had a individual who actually was thinking about coming to work in our organization as an instructor, and he wanted he wanted a really big salary, and he wanted a big salary because of the drama that he had from experience working at 2 different code schools. So he was looking for a salary that, would, compensate for the headache for dealing with troops or with students that come in and tell you what they want to learn outside of the curriculum, as well as keeping up with your skills and things of that nature. And I was like, well, I understand where you're coming from, because I've gone into a lot of these code schools and been able to meet and deal with your students, but those aren't our students, first and foremost. Those are the more, as we like to say, those are the civilian troops. Those aren't the military guys. They're not coming in complaining and stuff. They've already gone through crappy stuff. So telling them to put in the work and learn how to code isn't really hard for them. So that's one thing that we have. Second thing is, on the nonprofit side, you have to be solution oriented. From coming from like my organization to yours, like if you have to know what your goal is. Like my goal was not to preach the gospel of code. Like there are enough people out there to talk about how important coding is, and that are all about community. I absolutely loathe community because I'm one of those people who I'm like, okay, so you have 250 people in like your community. How many of them actually have jobs? And it's a percentage game. Like, oh, but you have 10 people that have jobs, 250 people in your Slack channel. Everybody's pushing to build your, like, for instance, one of our competitors. They have 250 people in their Slack channel. Minimum amount of those people have jobs. Of that, like I would say, if I was lucky, 20% of those had jobs in code, and that seemed really, really, really fair. Like I'm giving them like R level, but they don't teach. They essentially they're like cattling, or whatever people do to cattle that keep them in, like herding. That's what it is. They herd
drinking
veterans.
The Kool-Aid.
Yeah, they herd veterans, and then they cut these crappy deals with for-profit code schools to where they get a percentage of whatever veteran makes it into their code school, and they get that kickback. So, like, that's one of the things that we don't do. We figure we teach people to teach a man to fish, they will never come back. But that's not what our competitor does. So, but like we don't have a huge community, and that one, even though we've like pretty much lapped them in awards, but that's because our veterans actually get jobs, and our people, and the people that want to talk to us, they want to talk to us. It's not a relationship game. People see our work and they want to bring us in. Facebook, they saw what we were doing in our work, because we come in not with people who have no idea what they're saying, but they want to work at cool companies. We come in with people who, when we went to Dreamforce, for instance, and we did our first meeting on Facebook with some of their recruiters, we took one of our troops. And our troop comes in knowing not only about code, but he knows about computer science. He knows about big O notation and data structures and binary search. And that's a lot of things that's the biggest weakness in for-profit code schools, that the kids aren't learning anything about
data algorithms. They're not learning about algorithms.
Yeah, they don't learn anything about algorithmic programming, or they don't even learn that there's more than one type of programming. Like, OOP or object-oriented programming, but do you know functional programming? Do you know algorithmic programming? Can you solve these abstract problems and things of that nature? The closest they get to those type of ideas is doing FizzBuzz. And I'm like, that's just like scratching the surface. That's not the big, like, going in depth. So that's where we like stand out. We don't just do we don't just teach them how to do object-oriented programming. We spend after they do 3 months, after they do a month-long worth of pre-work, they have 3 months of going through our crawl, walk, run ideology of teaching, which is our curriculum, in which we put them on a crawl phase and always to run phase. And as they go further into it, the harder it is and the less help they get. Like crawl phase is when we're basically doing the most hand holding. But after crawl phase and walk phase, run phase is all by themselves. And then we get into our code interview, our interview prep phase, which is our final month. And all we do is that we focus on the tech interview. We focus on learning how to code and doing the best we can to make the best type of troops that is available. So our guys, they're learning about all the computer science stuff. They're learning about their languages. They're learning frameworks. We start with Ruby and Ruby on Rails. By the time they're making a full Ruby on Rails app, they're starting to move into JavaScript because they have to learn how to build on the asset pipeline when dealing with JavaScript. And then as they're moving on to that, we're doing JavaScript and we're doing frameworks. We're using React, Angular, Ember, and we're teaching them how to connect them using with Ruby on Rails and using either Node.js or Bower. And we let them choose which one they like the most on top of doing those type of things. So like using Materialize, playing CSS and Fast, Bootstrap, and Foundation as front-end design frameworks to make their sites actually look good. And we're doing that design psychology. We do a lot of things, and we have a lot of conversations that the average code school doesn't have.
Right.
Not on top of that, or the average program doesn't have. On top of that, we're doing our AMAs, or Ask Me Anything, in which we have these they're more like fireside chats, but because they're online and our troops get to actually talk to the people. We haven't decided what to exactly call them because we've taken 3 different models, mushed them into one. But our troops get to talk to some really cool people about tech. They talk to people, they talk to authors, they talk to creators of frameworks. They actually got to talk to DHH and ask him questions. And I'm right now, I think I'm the only nonprofit organization that has had DHH come in and speak to veterans. And they're getting all this stuff for free. And most veterans, they've never had the opportunity to talk to anyone, much less a person that created the thing that they're working with. So it's really, really cool. So that's one thing you had to figure out what are exactly your deliverables, and then you'll see that type of thing dissipate because everyone knows what they have to offer. We focus, like I said, we focus only on training to get you skills, to get you a job. So we're no BS. We're not going. It's not about fluff. It's not about having that startup experience, making you feel like you have the job. And if you go into a for-profit code school, that's what they do. They make you feel like you had the job or you got the job, even when you don't have the job. There's a lot of unnecessary stress, a lot of unnecessary meetings. There's free food. They're doing dumb things like Pajama Friday, all that stupid. Let's just focus on bare bones, get all the foolishness out the way, focus on learning how to code and learning how to code well. We have a style guide and we use Code Climate and Linter and Ruby Test and all these other things. We're teaching them TDD right off the bat. We're doing a lot of stuff that's professional grade because we're they want you to know this when you leave here. So instead of you learning that on your own, let's go ahead and let's cut to the chase and say, this is all the stuff you need to learn. And something that I'm still doing, things that we do. I try to do an interview at least once a month of going to a company and actually seeing what they are looking for. And it's crazy. I used to do it last year. I did twice a month for a full year, and that's how we built our curriculum. Was going out there for 12 months and seeing what people were looking at for programmers. And to this day, I think that's been our biggest thing of success, is seeing what works, what doesn't work in the coding interview. and building what works and doesn't work in a technical interview as well. Building our curriculum based upon that.
Real
So
life
like that's what,
experience.
yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I can say is just have your own deliverables of what you focus on up front, what you are and what you're not. And I think I saw a code school that kind of does that. They say exactly what they're not, and I absolutely loved it because a lot of people, you know, the more hip code schools, they don't put it out there like that. And the reason why they don't is because, you know, they want people to shell out a lot of cash. But because our product is a talented developer and not our consumer isn't a person that wants to become a developer, we don't have to do that on that end. What we have to do all the bells and whistle stuff on our end is dealing with the companies, which really helps because that means we just continue to make a better developer because that's in the end what they don't care about the bills. You know, when I go to HR managers or CEOs or CTOs or whoever handles the hiring, they don't care about all that crap. They care about getting like someone who can do the job, which is, you know, I think my strong suit is dealing with people who are no nonsense. So,
You don't say.
yeah. So going into being able, and I think that's one of our secrets of being able to get these high level conversations. We've had opportunities. We're speaking with Facebook, Twitter, Airbnb, ESPN, Disney in general, and these are all because I'm a no nonsense type of guy. So I put all my cards out there, and you know I use the integrity first model. This is what we want, and this is what we're going to give you. This is how we want to work it, and just be honest as much as possible up front instead of trying to use that emotional storytelling
All
component.
right.
And I'm seeing that people are starting to, when I first started this, people were not turning around to that. But now people are. They don't care about the story as much as the data because of nonprofits. They want to know where your money's going. They don't want to know, they don't want to see that 70% of the money is going to advertising or for you to make more money as like back in the old days. But now they want to know how much money is going to advertising, how much money is going to fundraising, how much money is going to salaries. You know, they don't want to, unless you are a multi-million nonprofit, they don't want to see a CEO or executive director that's making $100,000 a year. And so, you know, it's really an interesting time because there's big data or data in general is becoming more and more important. That's going to start sharing, like, especially this last election, it's made people really start paying attention to big data and how they use it. Because as you saw, everybody that called themselves a data expert got it wrong, except
Right.
an organization. And that was because they was using psychological profiles with big data in conjunction with big data, which is like almost on some Skynet level type stuff, but that's neither here or there.
Right. I know exactly what you're talking about. I followed it.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that really has me interested in like the next couple of years, especially as we consistently, in the end, we don't find veterans and coach them, make them happy, and like then ship them off to another school. And like, I'm not a motivational speaker. I give them skills. Like one of our veterans, he just did his final front-end web development website so that for his job search, and it's beautiful because of the things that he's been able to learn through our courses, be able to look at it and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I taught this person how to do something like this. See someone using D3.js in the background of their home page. And, you know, right now I'm looking at it and he has a computer on a cliff floating up and down and the mouse is like a pendulum swinging back and forth. It's like the most beautiful thing on earth. And I'm like, I can't believe I taught someone how to do that. That's mind blowing. I think I just like I could cry a little bit sometimes.
I know.
I don't believe it.
I get it. I mean, it's the same way for me. You know, teaching people Linux, like where is it used at? Where can you find it at? And for us, it's about, we just use Linux as the foundation for you to go into whatever it is that you want to go into. But you don't know these things. Kind of goes back what we talked about earlier. By going to school, no one in school is really teaching you Linux. I mean, they're just now coming around to trying to get Linux integrated into colleges, much less all the way down to, say, at an elementary school level. They're just now getting it to colleges where you can say, okay, well, I'm learning how to develop on Ubuntu. And then I'm just on Ubuntu, but it's still not that the whole behind the scenes, like being a storage administrator or understanding, how to use things like Puppet, Ansible, or Chef, or anything of those natures. Those things are still abstract until you get to the job. And it's to say, should they be abstract? Well, if you want to push development and you want to push people forward, you need to bring it off the hill and put it in the valley so that people can learn it and then make you a better castle on top of the hill. Like, we have to kind of change that mindset, like put it at the lower level so that it is obtainable. It is something that you can learn, and you don't have to go spend $60,000 in order to learn it, but go somewhere where you can get
$60,000 a year. Let's get it right.
right.
$60,000 a year. Yeah.
Right.
Like I look at college course. I look at college prices and like inflation. I look at my son and I'm like, yo, like I don't hear nothing about girls unless you bring a straight A's home. Like you're in every curriculum. I don't want to hear nothing. I'm like, I don't want to hear nothing. Don't know. Can you go out? You have to go out great? Nah, can't do that. Like, nope. Like,
Good luck.
like man, college, like the price of college is, especially when you break down that data of college, like it's the amount is disgusting, but where the money's going is like infuriating. Like 50% of your college tuition is going to like athletic programs and stuff. And I'm like, so we're going to like football, and football is we're doing all of this data and realizing that, those kids that are playing football are like literally killing themselves a little bit with all the concussions that they get. And we're like, why on earth am I paying 50% for somebody to run their kid, to put their kid in a brain damage inducing sport? Like, I just don't understand. And I'm like, I can't do it. I tell him, you might get homeschooled.
I told my little
college.
brother the same thing. Yeah, I told my little brother the same thing when he was graduating from high school and then he was looking at colleges and whether he wanted to go to college. And I was like, well, luckily anything that you want to do right now you can do. If you want to go to real estate school, I can put you in real estate school. It's going to take like 3 months. We can get you going. If you want to be a graphic designer, if you want to go to sales school, like if you want any training that they have out there for you, you can go. If you do not want to go to a 4-year institution. However, you have the opportunity to go to a 4-year institution, but I want you to go to Stanford or somewhere where you're going to network, because really that's what college is about.
Thank you. I tell my kid that. I'm like, listen, because he wanted to initially go to Alabama. Like, no, first and foremost, you need to leave the South. Like, let's be real, South is a little terrifying right now. You need to go to a coastal school so you can network. Because like school, like middle school and high school, that's where you do all your hard work. College is where you just go. That's when you join all your fraternities and all your extracurricular clubs, and you start doing the real networking that'll help you for the rest of your life. And he's just now starting to see that, and I'm like, thank you for realizing what the heck I'm talking about. But like the first list of colleges he gave me, like we've been working on this since like he was 8 or 9. He's 13 now, so we've gotten this list down. It makes more sense. But it was all like football towns, and I was like, first and foremost, my wife is not good with making like football stock humans. Like her whole family, they're not good at it. Everybody is like 5'7", 5'6". There's a bunch there's a bunch of tiny people talking about football, and I'm like, y'all gonna die out there. Like the average guy is like 6'2" with 300 pounds of weight on him. Like no, like I had to sit them down when they're like, you are never gonna be a football player. Like I love you to death, man, but like those kids are getting bigger, and like he had to
And
realize that
faster.
too. Yeah, like he went through like going through elementary school football when middle school happened, and everybody let him hit their growth spurt, and he realized that, oh my goodness, like when that kid hit me that time, that really hurt. He's like twice your body weight now.
Oh
And
yeah.
like that's how all of them gonna be, and when you grow up, like real life.
Yes.
like nah, I was like, it's okay though, man. Go to your strengths. No, you don't have to do that. Like you don't have to get ran over by those big old kids. Those kids are huge. Like I
All
wouldn't be
right.
out
Oh yeah,
there.
yeah. That's what
But
happened to my basketball career. Like sixth grade basketball, I was like, okay, so I'm just gonna be smart. I was like, these
yeah,
girls
they're
are
like,
huge. I'm 5'4".
yeah,
I've been 5'4" forever. Like, no,
yeah.
it's not gonna work for
Yeah,
me.
my wife, she thought she was it's a funny story because they tell me how she thought she was like the biggest, like baddest person when she was in elementary school, and then she went to middle school, and like everybody kept growing, and she stopped. And I'm like,
Nothing.
that's like the story of her family. Like her mom is like 5'1". My wife is the tallest person in her family, and she's like 5'3" and 3/4. She makes sure that everyone knows that there's a 3/4 there. And like no one cares about that 3/4, but she cares. So I remember it because I want to
I
stay
feel
married.
her. I
So
feel your wife. I need my half as well.
Oh God.
Yeah,
yeah, all
definitely.
right.
Gag me with a
I
spoon.
don't mess with them, Tanika, because they are feisty. You ignore that little bit of half to a quarter inch. They ready to fight.
Yeah, so
So
I,
just
I
add
get
it.
it, but yeah, whatever. They're all right. What you mentioned earlier was something that was we discussed before about being in the South and getting support on what your not necessarily just your overall mission, but just support period versus being in the North or being on the West Coast. How has the South been for you in terms of building relationships and turning in terms of building your community and in terms just the overall branding it with you for your company?
Roger that. Well, there's good and bad with that because we initially started in the South. We were able to make our mistakes and stuff around people who did not understand what we were doing or care, frankly, because it's not really big. Tech isn't really big in the South, so that was, it's like go back to the book I recommended, Rework. They're like, don't, make a big opening and shout you're launching from the moon. Shout it like go like small places and things like that, like how Broadway does. Those like when you go to Hamilton, that's not. Hamilton first did it from small itty bitty theater in like Ohio or something like that, where no one really cared. So the actors could get some reps under their belt and be able to work out the kinks of the play before they went to New York. And it's the same concept. So that's really good before we do anything really big, really huge, like with a lot of attention. We're able to do a lot of the getting the kinks out and, making it better because of being in the South. So that's really good. Really bad is because of the South is not really tech savvy. They were like, ironically, the last areas that started asking and talking and wanting to hire our troops. And even those areas now are more like they really focus on areas that are close to like military installations or government places. Like I did not know that Department of Homeland Security uses a lot of Rails apps, but I learned that the government has been going towards Rails from Java for over the past 4 years. They've been switching over into Rails. So that's really, really cool. But we ended up getting a call from some place in like middle of nowhere, Mississippi, that was asking for Rails developers, and they were Department of Homeland Security, and they also there was another organization that focuses on helping people who want to helping immigrants become citizens of the United States, and they use Rails applications. So those are two really cool examples. But when it comes to companies and like company support, a lot of our support comes from the bubble, as people like to say, or the coastal elites, because they actually understand like programming and what it takes. And not only that, they're perfectly okay with a person that understands code, but might not understand their code base, because they know that they're under the realization that we're going to have to train you, like, or how to do your job. Anyway, but if you know how to code, that makes it so much easier. So knowing how to program, knowing how to think, is what these people are looking for. Whereas in the South, they are looking for most companies, because they're still new to this whole hiring phase and code hiring thing, is they're looking for somebody that can do the job right out the box, which is not ever going to happen. Like, you're going to have to take some time with this person. I tell people from my first job, when I actually learned how to program, when I was actually programming, but my first two jobs, actually, when I first started how to program, they were both basically me creating the job as I go, or figuring out stuff as I go. At least one job gave me no information about what was going on, so I had to find out like who were you guys hosting with, and then figure out what stuff I needed to host with, and then go like back and forth. And the other job, they at least gave me a big old notebook of stuff that I really didn't need anything but 3 pages of. So that was fun to figure out what 3 pages of this 500-page folder of documentation was actually useful. So those are two really big differences in the South and in like East Coast, West Coast. When I'm in San Francisco, like being able, just the things that like they were asking when it comes to like interviews were 100% different, and they really, like, their hiring managers understood what they were looking for, versus the South, where the hiring managers, we did a study with one place, and like 30% of the hiring managers in that state, they had no idea what they were interviewing for, and as a result, those were places where we didn't want to send our troops to, because that's a really high, even though it's only 30%, that's still a really high place when you're thinking of what they're asking you for on the interviews, on a scale of 1 to 10, rate yourself and how well you think you are on HTML. And I'm like, are you serious? That's not that can't be an interview question, like, right? Like, how do you even, anybody that doesn't rate themselves as a 10 on these, like, the first 5 questions of this interview, like, is insane. Like, it was horrible. So we tend to try to focus on on places that understand, like, that they understand what we're doing a lot more, like agencies, tech companies, big companies that have robust tech environments, and those, unfortunately, like when it comes to the South, Atlanta tends to be a really good example of places that we do send people to. But Chattanooga also is another good one. But a lot of the other areas in the South, they're really more hit or miss, or sometimes, like, and it also comes to play with the fact there aren't a lot of tech companies there. So they don't really understand. A place that's coming up is Little Rock. They're really, because they just now end up getting a new company called Matova, and that guy, he knows his stuff, and he's helping them change how they look at code. So, but it's actually stepping up. He's helping Little Rock in general step up their game. But another place that we're getting a lot of attention from is Seattle. They're actually really interested because, the tech bubble in San Francisco, is not going anywhere. And as a result, it's getting more expensive on the one thing you do need, which is space. And so Seattle is becoming like that satellite place that, they're getting finding developers, placing them there in Seattle to work at these cool jobs. So that way they can save money on like relocation, actually having living space, because best part about the South hands down, is like the cost of living. Well, when you go to, but because we don't do anything here, it's even more fun because I save my money here. And when I'm like in San Francisco and New York, I go and have fun while I'm out there. Like, it's awesome. But
Right.
to live in San Francisco would be a nightmare because those guys, like, for the same amount of money that, like, that's one of my wife's biggest, like, things. Like, she's like, for the amount of money that we can have for our house, we would have to, 2-bedroom or maybe 1-bedroom. She's like, nah, I'm not doing that. Like, that's crazy. Like, we live in Nashville, and Nashville's expensive, but San Francisco and New York makes Nashville look cheap.
You're
So
right. No
it's
comparison.
really funny. Yeah, it's really funny. And plus, she has this really cool neuroscience job, and like, she's not giving that up anyway. So that's why I'm always traveling these days.
Hmm.
But like, I guess that answers the question. Like, for our infrastructure purposes, being in the South is really helpful. For everything else, like partnerships and stuff, I guess it's helpful in the fact that we get to save a lot of money while here. So I'm able to travel to like places that actually know what I'm doing. Uh,
Hmm.
and I actually get to level up faster outside because I'm going to basically 2 tech and Ruby capitals of the world. Like, so going to San Francisco, which is a big Ruby city, and New York, which is another big Ruby city, and coming back here, like, if you call me the guru of Rails developers or awesome Rails guy, we did that hackathon together in
Hmm.
Memphis, and I was able to, within a day, knock out a really nice React on Rails app for our troops. I mean, I call everybody troops, but for our kids, and they were able to, they all got free Xbox Ones, so because they won. So it was like, that helps, like, going to these like really advanced locales when it comes to tech. It's like being on Dragon Ball Z or something where you level up by who the people you're peer programming around.
All right.
Um, so that's really good. So I guess it's a good and bad thing. I guess that's the best way to say it. Like, be completely honest. It sucks sometimes because I'm surrounded by people who have no idea what I'm saying,
All right.
but it's not horrible because, like, I could actually get work done in where I'm at because no one's treating me like a rock star. Last week I had 2 New Yorkers come in town, and they were just like, they had lunch with my kid and I before Thanksgiving. They were just gushing over me because they're like, oh, he's a Ruby Rogue, he's done all this stuff, he's so cool. And my kid was like, what are they talking about? I was like, don't worry about it, you'll learn one day. So it really helps.
All right. And then it's really 2 questions, but I combine them into one. In
Mhm.
terms of the message that you want to get across to people coming out of the military, again, like I said before, it's hard to make that transition. So I kind of, in my mind, and I don't know if you see it this way, do you see yourself as like the platform, to help those people transition? Because you get a packet when you come out on things that you need to do X, Y, and Z. Do you see yourself being in that packet as like a platform for men and women who are coming out of the military, or do you just see yourself like, if you want to code, we're over here, but it's whatever. Like, it's almost like a partnership.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. I look at it as, best way to say it, I look at it as yes and no. Because do I want every veteran to know about us? Yes. But do I think every veteran should get code? No. I do believe that as a country we need to start moving more into skill-based jobs, and less into like saying that, the golden gauntlet is learning, going to a college or something like that. That's the golden ticket to get you wherever you want to go. But coding may not be right for everyone. And what I've learned is that the right talent, they're already on that path of going here, and it makes it really easy. It makes it easier for us to find it just because we're not, trying to be on every base and every installation, and we're not trying to be in Air Force Times or Military Times magazine, because not everybody looks at this as an option. Even though I was originally security forces. One of the people that come to our program and graduated was Air Forceman, was a mechanic not a mechanic, I apologize, a weapons loader for F-22s, which basically meant he put missiles on a plane, and then they took that plane somewhere, did bad stuff to bad people, and then came back. And I tell, like, one of the funniest things that I tell people about is, civilian managers don't know how to look at that as a real skill for their job. I'm like, you know how technical or how hard it has to be to put missiles on a plane? So, like, if you guys did a switch careers day, you wouldn't be able to last 5 minutes in his job. So what makes you think he couldn't last 5 minutes in your office job? Like,
All right.
So I guess for us, we want everybody in the military to know that we're an option, but we do not want to be that place. Like I said, we're really down onto quality and not quantity. I don't want to have 300 people in my Slack channel I have to keep up with. Then, wake up one day and we're at like 10% of our people don't have jobs, or not don't, but do have jobs. So I want to continue keeping that process of making the absolute best talent for our partners and people that actually have experience working with us. For example, Tamika, do you have your messaging app on you?
Yeah.
Or could you check it right now? I'm just sending you
I got it.
things that our troops are working on. If you check that out, that is a pristine example of especially on full screen, is beautiful. So that's what we want that's the type of quality of, our troops we are putting out. This kid came to us in August, and the things he's doing now as code is ridiculous. And that's what we want to do. We don't want to build a cookie cutter project. We want to be able to talk to a veteran, see their strengths, see their weaknesses, and make them the best type of programmer they can. You can't do that when you're trying to reach everyone. So I much rather want 100% and someone doing some amazing work and shoring up their skills, coming to us, and then leaving us, and they're doing rock star stuff versus anything, versus just being a community. There are other places out there that are communities. We don't focus on that, however. I focus on being better than them. As one of our as Wits, he says, we like being a special forces of VSOs, where the troops, they come to us and they get something that you can't get anywhere else.
Right. So basically, what size is your cohort when they come in? What's your largest size?
We go no higher than 13. There's squad format or squad formation where there are 3 4-man teams. 4 4-man teams: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta, and then 1 squad leader. So that's how we've been doing it.
Okay. Which makes sense. Keeping it small, I agree. 13 to 15. I mean, I've had classes as big as 50, but that comes from people just wanting to know what it is. And so, trying to strip away out the jargon of being too advanced on wanting to know what it is versus some people who are in the class, they may know what it is, but they just haven't played with it for a while. So it's a level to be said on keeping the class small and having enough people to help you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was for a 3 4-man teams.
Okay.
3 4-man teams. So it's 12 plus a squad.
Okay.
Plus a squad leader. So we have 13. I did 4x4. Like, wait, that doesn't sound right. It sounds like 16 people. Like, no.
Okay. It's okay.
No.
It's okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then last but not least, what's on your agenda for 2017? And then how can people get in touch with you? You're basically your shameless plug where you get a chance to big up anybody you want to, social media and whatever outlook you have for 2017 and future.
Roger that. I think 2017, what we're going to be doing is we're going to focus on getting not so much as bigger, but deeper with our relationships. We're going to be focusing on building more rock star talent that can do amazing things, and building with companies that are looking for really talented, highly technical people. I think we definitely like to thank the BMIT, or the Black Men in Tech group. They help us with a lot of our resources and relationships. Being in most of them are in the SF area, so they connect us with high level people all the time. I would like to thank Facebook, that was just blown away. I was more blown away. I don't know who was the bigger fan of each other, actually, Facebook or like them of us. So that was kind of cool to have mutual fanboying going on. So that's what it is. The best way to reach us is go to www.vetsucode.io, put in a contact form, or if you're a veteran, fill out our there's a hyperlink that shows where you can go to a form and fill out any want to join our pool of applicants. I'm also on Twitter as Jerome Hardaway. I try to get verified, but obviously I don't have enough stuff out there. I got like 30 different podcasts that I've been on this year, but so I'm gonna bust at them when I get a chance. But find me on Twitter, or just Jerome at vetsucode.io. I am everywhere, and I'm Jerome Hardaway everywhere. I'm not cool at all. I don't have a fancy tag or anything like that. From GitHub to Medium, I'm just Jerome Hardaway.
That's it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just making sure I don't want to cut you off. But we thank you at Women in Linux for taking the time to speak with us on not just about Vets Who Code, but just general overall how to keep people encouraged. Also how to reach out and use your network and your resources, and as well also how to make sure people can find you as well, because that's a part of your mission there is making sure you're accessible, and also making sure that that you also get people on in the skill set, well, not just the skill sets they need, but make sure they get into the field that they want to get into, because it's not just about programming. It's about data science. It's about AI. It's about machine learning. It's about all of that. But again, like I say, some of that you don't even get in college, and you get it on the job, and it's kind of a little late when you're 5 years in and $60,000 in debt. So we applaud you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Women in Linux podcast. Women in Linux is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization created to get women involved in the field of IT using Linux as a foundation. You can connect with Women in Linux through social media at Women in Linux on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. To join weekly meetups, go to meetups.com/Women in Linux. For more information and to connect with Women in Linux, go to www.womeninlinux.com.